Welcome to Pub Talk, the unofficial official craft beer podcast of Oklahoma, where we're all about the three B's, beer buddies, and bullshit. I'm Michael, and with me as always is a guy who might be able to finally get some rest, now that we're back in a tap room with a special guest, Jeremy.
Hey, yo.
On today's show, we're back at it again with a new Spotlight episode, this time with the great folks at Emersumnice Brewery in Owasso, Oklahoma. If you like what you hear today, don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button wherever you're listening, and show us some love on social media at Pub Talk Podcasts. All right, let's get into it. First off, thank you for having us out here.
Yeah, morning, guys.
Morning. We'd like to start these off with just a brief introduction. Who you are?
Sure. I'm Donnie Eldridge, one of the co-owners of Emersumnice Brewery.
So, let's dive right in. Start off about the name. A lot of people are curious about the name.
Well, it's a play on words. It's perfect for a bunch of Okies, and people think they get way too deep into the nuts and bolts of the name and how it's spelt. But I mean, really, what it just comes right down to is Emersumnice beers. I mean, it's Emersumnice appetizers, Emersumnice pizzas. It applies for all kinds of things.
Sure.
Talk to us a little bit about the brewery, the size of it, your barrel capacity.
Yeah, sure. So I've got an Alpha system. It's a 7-barrel system, and we've got 4 7-barrel fermenter tanks and one 15-barrel fermenter tank and a 15-barrel bright tank. So it allows us to double batch some of our popular beers.
Awesome.
Well, speaking of beers, we've both got the same beer here we're drinking on a little bit right now. Can you tell us about that? That's one of your newer entries.
It is actually one of the guys I brew with, a guy named Frank. We both have been in the military combined. I think between the two of us, we've got 64 years in the military, and we've been brewing beer for about 15 years. And this is kind of a collaboration between one of his recipes and some stuff that we've pulled out of the brewing kind of lessons learned, and came up with this kind of English pale ale. It's a great golf course beer or lawnmower beer or something along those lines, and that's a lot of times I think craft brewers get wrapped around the handle sometimes about how strong some of these beers are and how much flavor's in some of these beers, and some of them can be a little bit overpowering, not only with taste and alcohol and hops and that kind of bitterness. And so what we were going for with this beer here is a good quality, a lawnmower beer. This is a beer that anybody can come out and drink, and just enjoy on a hot summer day, and like I said, it's a good looking beer, good tasting beer.
Agreed.
Yeah, definitely. While we're talking about beer, can you just talk to us a little bit about what you have on tap here?
Yeah, absolutely. So we will always have 5 flagship beers on tap. I say always, but one of our flagship beers right now we ran out of with this whole COVID thing. Everybody being cooped up for the last month and a half or so. Once they started coming out, that's been the biggest challenge, is keeping up with the supply and demand. So we have our Blonde Moment is probably one of our most popular beers. It's a cream ale style beer. Once again, it's a great beer. I've always joked and said it's my chick beer, but I don't mean that rudely or anyway. It's just a beer that everybody likes, regardless of your taste or palate or whatever. It's a good entry level into craft beer. After that, we have our Ram's Head Wheat. It is a Belgian style Hefeweizen, but with American yeast. I've never been a huge fan of the clove that a lot of Belgian Hefeweizens leave. And having it one of our flagship beers and coming into a community like Owasso, I wanted everybody to, enjoy all of the beers, and so I took some of the attributes out of what makes some craft beers a little over the top and tried to back them down a little bit for the crowd that I was, dealing with here. Yeah. And it's been very popular. It was also one of the first beers that we double batch because it's a big seller. So after that, you jump into our Hopback Mountain. Hopback Mountain is a red ale. It's actually uses probably the most hops in any of our recipe, but a lot of it's dry hopped. We run it through a hop back device, hence the name, and it is probably one of the best tasting reds I've ever had. It's a crowd favorite. It's between that and the Ram's Head Wheat amongst our two best sellers, which kind of surprises me. I kind of figured the Blonde Moment would have been my biggest seller because it's such the easiest drinking beer, but it's between those two beers that sells a lot of. The Hopback, we've only been open since March 17th. And this is the third batch of it that we've made, and it will probably run out of it briefly while it's going through the fermenter right now. But it's just a great red ale. Like I said, it's the most hops that we use, but it's actually relatively low on the IBUs, and it has a really pleasant caramel finish, and it hides the alcohol real well. It's a little bit higher on the ABVs than the other flagship beers, but like I said, it hides it real well. So then the next beer is our Free Ridge IPA. As a brewer, it's kind of funny to say this, but I'm not a huge IPA fan. I think a lot of guys tend to overdo them, and I've never been a big fan of having a beer that I feel like you need to use a knife and a fork with, and then wash it down with a glass of water. So this is another great, refreshing IPA. It's got a nice grapefruit finish to it. And it's the bitterness is right up there where a great IPA should be. It's got awesome color, and it's just a real refreshing IPA. And then the last of our flagship beers is our Oatmeal Stout. Probably one of I go between the Oatmeal Stout and the Hopback Mountain as my two favorites. You're not supposed to have any favorite children, but it's between those two that I enjoy drinking the most. I toast my oats, and it gives it those oats being toasted to me gives it a nice cookie aroma, and it has. I'm not a big coffee fan, so I take a little bit of that bittering coffee attributes out of the stouts and hit it with some sweet chocolate, and it's a low ABV stout, which most of them are, and it's just a real easy drinking beer that I find that I can drink it year round. It's not just a winter or fall type beer. It's a good beer all around.
Yeah,
Awesome.
Well, we kind of alluded to it there a little bit with the community of Owasso, but you guys opened at an interesting time. You're Owasso's first brewery. What's the response been like from the community of Owasso, and just kind of what it means to be in this community?
It's actually been incredible. We get, if I hear it 40, 50 times a day, I hear it 70 times a day is, man, Owasso needed this. Yeah. There's a lot of great restaurants in Owasso. I think last council meeting I was sitting in, there was like 102 restaurants in this community.
Wow.
Which, for as small as Owasso is, that's an incredible number.
Yeah.
We're not trying to compete with any of those on the restaurant level. I mean, we're a brewery, but people like having a place that they can go to and call their own in a community, and I think people are starting to warm up to this, and there's still a lot of people here in Owasso that have no idea that I'm here, which is fine. They'll figure it out soon enough. But as far as the community goes, everybody's just been super, super friendly. Right down from the city council to the Chamber of Commerce, and the leaders of the community have just been really, really helpful, and in all aspects, and even some of our local politicians have been in a couple times and had a meeting or two here. So it's pretty exciting that everybody's getting behind this place.
Right on.
You have something unique in your tap room. Can you talk to us a little bit about the soldier table setting that you'll have set up?
Yeah. So, like I was saying earlier, I've been in the military for 32 years, and I haven't done a lot of decorating here yet. That's hadn't been on my priority list. But one of the things that when I set out to do this, I'd said that this is what I'm going to do. This is going to be there. I don't care what it costs me to do it, but I think people will need to see this and appreciate it. So anytime that you're in a military dining facility, DFAC, chow hall, whatever you want to call it, the first thing you always see is a deployed soldier, MIA, or POW table setting. It's a real simple setting, typically for one, and there's certain items all around that setting that represent certain things about the soldier being gone, the sacrifices of himself, his family, and things like that. And what I wanted people to see there is, for one, that there's people out there all over the world that are doing things to make sure that the people back home can come in and enjoy beers and their freedoms, their right to protest, their right to do whatever they want to do. Those come at a cost, and so when people walk past that, I want them to see that. That's there 24/7. It's not a Memorial Day thing. It's not a 4th of July thing. It's something that's always there.
Awesome. So, we've talked a little bit about this as a brew pub, so there's also food here. Can you talk to us a little bit about some of the specialties that are going to be on the food menu, maybe some beer and food pairings?
Yeah, absolutely. So some back history on the food portion of it. My original location was about half the size of what I'm in now. This is a little over 6,000 square feet. And my original location north of Owasso was about just a little over 3,000 square feet. Once that kind of fell through and this presented itself, I immediately knew that I was going to have to up my game as far as food goes. I think part of being a great brewery and an establishment is having something for everybody, and I felt one of my ways that I could do that is to have a decent menu so people could come in, have a burger, have a pizza, have a salad, have whatever it is that they want to have, and then wash it down with a beer. There's a lot of family members here in town that moved to Owasso and might not have friends or families for kids to babysitters, that kind of thing. So what we wanted to have here was a place that a small family, a mom and dad and 1.5 kids could come in and have a meal, a lunch, dinner, whatever it is, and have something for those kids to sit down, have a cheese pizza or some hot wings, something like that, and mom and dad can enjoy a beer and watch something on TV while they sit down and have a beer and not have to worry about what kind of food truck's going to be there today or if there's going to be a food truck there at all. So with that, we brought in a wood fire pizza oven from Italy, and the reason I went with the wood fire pizza oven while I was serving in Iraq in this last deployment, one of the places we would stop often for gas is in Kuwait. At one of the Air Force bases there, and they had an Italian eatery that was ran by some Saudis, and I was absolutely mesmerized and floored how quickly their cook could put together pizza, fire the pizza, get the pizza out, and how great the pizza tasted with that wood fire oven. And so I knew just as soon as we were going to have to do this, that's what I was going to go with, and I couldn't have been more happy with the oven that we chose and the results that we've been getting. Our pizzas are incredible. We get just tons of compliments on those. We're doing, like I said, we're doing hot wings. We're doing some hamburgers. We're getting ready to open up our full menu, what I like to call our date night menu. We're going to be offering, probably the middle of this month, we'll be offering a pork chop, some mussels, and a couple other little small things. And a pasta dish. So just, like I said, we're trying to like I said, we're not trying to compete with any restaurant. We're just trying to put out a good product that people keep coming back for. One of the interesting things I think that we're going to try and do is we've got a couple really good chefs in the back that are super creative. And so we're going to be offering, about the same time that we launch our full menu, we'll be launching a secret menu that is going to be something that's going to be changing about every 2 weeks. And our cooks are going to drive that train, and whatever they think is seasonal or whatever they want to try and play with and mess around with as far as taste and latest trends, that kind of stuff, then I'm going to just let them go at it. And the only way you're going to find out about what's on the secret menu is to come in and ask for it. We won't post it on social media or anything like that. It'll just be something you'll have to come in and say, hey, what's on the menu tonight? So
That's awesome.
Nice. Yeah.
When we came in here, Jeremy pointed out your membership mugs. Can you talk to us a little bit about that program?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think being in the military, it's all about camaraderie, belonging to an organization, a brotherhood, sisterhood, whatever you want to call it. And I kind of think mug clubs do that for a brewery. Once you become a member of that mug club, you're basically becoming a member or group, a member of a group or organization, and you take a little bit of, I feel like, ownership with the past mug clubs that I've been part of, and it's an investment in that brewery. And so what we're doing with their mug clubs, they're $100. With that, you get a 20-ounce mug, you get a mug club T-shirt, and you get a dog tag that will be basically your key to your mug. So you'll come in, you'll have our logo on it and your mug number on it. You just come up, show the bartender, and they'll retrieve your mug. Mug's good for 1 year. At the end of the 1 year, you can renew your mug club membership for the same $100. You get to take your old mug home. You get a new mug and a new T-shirt. A couple of other cool things about it is when we have special release parties for maybe some one-off beers or some beers that we're trying, we've got a pilot system that we'll be making beer with. And when we're playing around with some really off-the-wall recipe, those mug club members will be the ones that we call to come in and taste them and see if it's worth making a big batch of, something like that. And they'll also be in the know with when the latest beers are coming out and when they show up for those kind of things.
That's really cool.
Nice. So you've got a unique facility here. I can't think of another two-story tap room other than Welltown. Can you talk to us about kind of the differences between, I know the upstairs has got a little bit different vibe than the downstairs.
Sure. So once again, trying to offer something for everybody was kind of paramount for this build out. I'm a parent, lots of kids, and Friday nights used to be date night, when the kids were little, and I just like my vacations, I didn't want to go anywhere where kids were allowed. It's one thing to get a babysitter for your kids, but then have to go and listen to someone else's kids. That was, that's not fun. So we made sure that we had an area that was 21 and older. So if mom and dad want to bring the kids out for dinner on Friday and Saturday nights, that's awesome. That's the downstairs area for them. They can have beer, they can, everything that's going on upstairs, they can do downstairs just with a family environment. Upstairs, 21 and older, we do live music up there on Fridays and Saturday nights. It's pretty intimate. We do reservations, so people can make plans for an evening and not have to worry about if they're going to get, not have a table or, something along those lines. It's got 2 balconies that overlook Owasso, the downtown area. And we're constantly making improvements to that space up there. We get feedback every weekend by, hey, have you thought about doing this or thought about doing that? We're adding a couple 12-inch bar tops to our balconies so that someone can go actually sit up there on the balcony and put their pizza, beer, or whatever it is that they're eating and sit outside and enjoy the night air and stuff. And it's a pretty cool little place to hang out. I really like it up there.
Awesome. Can you talk to us a little bit about how the process went for you guys to go from the idea of a brewery to actually opening your doors up?
Yeah, that was about it took about 2 years. I was deployed to Iraq in 2017, 2018, and was at my second location at a camp called Al-Assad, which is right next to the Syrian border. And we were running operations out of there, doing medevac chase with our helicopters, and doing a variety of other missions as well. In April, we had lost an Air Force air crew out there to some mission stuff. And shortly thereafter, we had a sandstorm that I think lasted 4 days. And while we were in that sandstorm, I was basically stuck in a little tent, and started having some questions on how much longer that I wanted to stay in and continue to do this. At the time, that was 30 years of military stuff and being deployed, and that kind of stuff is hard on families. Our Army deployments are typically anywhere from 13 to 14 months long, and it's tough, not only on a soldier, but the families and the moms and the wives and the husbands, that are left behind here, and the kids. So I was there with 3 other guys from Oklahoma. We were the only ones at Al-Assad from Oklahoma, and 2 of the guys have been lifelong friends. And one of the young kids, just new to the unit, and I said, I think it's time for me to do something different, and one of the guys he said, man, why don't you go into brewing beer? He said, your beer is incredible. And I was like, that's not a bad idea. I mean, it's something that I've thought about in the past, and so I sat down for the next 4 days during that sandstorm, and I've always been kind of a numbers guy. I've always kept all my numbers and stuff from past recipes and things like that, and sat down and figured out how much it cost to make, how much beer costs per ounce, and then started looking into what kind of system I would need and how big the system would need to be, and I came up with what I felt like was a very solid business plan and a price to get that off the ground, and sent it to a CPA friend of mine, and had her take a look at it. She and was like, man, this is pretty accurate. If this is, these are actual numbers, this is something that I think, you're going to do well at. And literally, it was just kind of, I was sitting in my housing unit, and just launched it out on the internet just to see, what the heck, let's see what happens. And within probably 4 or 5 days, we had about 3 different offers that were interested in doing the financing. Awesome. As soon as I started start thinking that, man, this is something is doable, we started talking to some people back here in Owasso. Owasso was the first place I thought of. It's always been kind of a second home to me. And we found a developer that was starting to build a complex, and they were interested in me being the anchor of that complex, and so we started having talks with them while I was still in Iraq. So it was pretty exciting. And jump forward, I get home, and that starts to kind of fall through, but it contacted the Owasso Chamber of Commerce and the financial development group, and they were just super excited about having a brewery in Owasso, which was one of the things I was most kind of scared about. Owasso, like a lot of small towns, have got some deep roots, and this might not be something that they wanted here. But once we got the positive feedback, I was like, this is going to happen. I said the first place kind of fell through, and which the city was just absolutely thrilled with, because the whole time they wanted me to be here in the heart of the downtown area, where they're trying to revamp and slowly start to rebuild it and make it part of Owasso's charm and draw for the other surrounding communities. So, we met the building owners, and it was a super good fit. The Maoris own this building, and Steve and Renee have been two of the best people to work with, and I could have ever hoped to have imagined. They, this is obviously a huge financial step for anybody to undertake, but for a building owner, it's a big financial gamble on their part as well. And so, like I said, I can't say enough nice things about the Maoris. They are a couple real gems. They believe in the community, and they believe in the project and what we're bringing to Owasso, and they've just been super great. So that's pretty much. And then I said we started with the Maoris in February of last year, and we opened our doors in March of this year, and had some contracting issues, and like everybody else does when a building project, you're going to run into delays and things like that. We'd have really liked to have opened up in November, December was kind of our original plan, and so shit happens.
That it does, especially when you're opening a brewery.
Yeah.
We always like to ask people, especially the first time they come on the show, if you remember your first craft beer and or your epiphany beer where you kind of stopped drinking.
Yeah. That's easy. That's easy. That's another easy, great story. I feel like. So same guy, Frank, the guy I brew with, Frank Montgomery. His wife used to own a liquor store in Pryor, Oklahoma, which anybody who owns a liquor store, they're a really good friend, right?
Yeah.
So back in the day, 15 some odd years ago, Frank shows up to work with these Chimay gift packs. All three flavors in that beautiful tulip glass. Mm-hmm. And I was a diehard Bud Light fan, just because you didn't know any better.
Sure.
Oklahoma and the Army, it's cheap. You drink whatever's put in front of you, and so. So anyway, Frank shows up for Christmas with this, me and a couple other friends, with this gift pack, and I was like, "Yeah, thanks, Frank. Whatever." And it stuck it in the fridge, and it sat there for probably 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. And I just happened to run out of Bud Light one day and watching a football game or something, and I was like, well, I'll go in there and break into that stuff. How bad can it be? And drank all three of them in one sitting, and was just schmammered. And I couldn't get over the flavor, the plum that would come out in some of those Chimay and the Tapas style beers. Just I was just hooked. And so we worked Tuesday through Friday at the facility here at the helicopter base. And so Tuesday I went in, I said, Frank, I love that Chimay stuff, man. I said, I want a case of that Grand Reserve. And he's like, done. So he goes and orders it at the liquor store, and by Friday he shows up with it, and he gets it to me at cost, which was $90 a case. And I was like, holy, you used to paying, whatever, a 30 pack in your, so I stuck it on the bottom shelf, and when I'd have friends come over, like, don't drink off the bottom shelf, you won't like it, and kept that for myself. So same Christmas, different friend, got the same gift pack, a guy named Steve, and his wife bought him a home brewing setup from High Gravity. And he made his first two beers he made was some kind of blonde or a wit beer. It was a wit beer, and a Chimay was his second one. So February rolls around, and he comes up to work, and he's like, hey, I want you guys to try some of my home brew that my wife bought me for Christmas. And I was like, man, that's awesome. And in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, oh, this is going to be terrible. My former father-in-law had made a couple batches of beer, and one of them turned out okay, and the other one was a little little rough, so my expectations were not real high. And so I started asking him, so what'd you make? He said, well, this one I brought is the Chimay. And I'm like, really? And he said, yeah, I actually have a real one out in the car in one of mine. And I kind of want you guys to do the old blind taste test on it. And I was like, okay. And so, he, had us on one side of the cooler, and he was back there pouring these drinks, and had everything in the red Solo cups, and, handed them out there, and took, a drink out of each one of them. And he asked both, me and Frank, which one we liked the best. And I was like, I like this one over here. And he goes, and Frank agreed. He said, that's the one that I made. And I said, you're kidding me. And he said, no, not at all. And I said, well, what did it cost? He said, it was a little over $50 for 2.5 cases. And I couldn't drive fast enough to get to High Gravity to buy my first kit. And, I've been making beer ever since. And it has always been what has kind of drove my train as far as craft beer is trying to duplicate. When I first started, I wanted to duplicate these beers that were just so expensive because it was such a saving. And it's a good hobby. It's a still great hobby. But yeah, the Chimay was probably one of my favorite beers. And some, I got into there was a time period where I was just huge into wheat style beers. I love Franziskaner and Polliner. Are two of my favorites, so I'd make those beers quite often. We'd have a Halloween party, and I'd turn that Franziskaner and tweak it just a little bit, and it became what was known as my Frankenstein, and it was just one of those great Halloween beers that was always on tap for some of my Halloween parties, and just and it just grew and grew and grew. 2010, I deployed to Iraq for the first time, and I was with Frank. We were roommates actually, and about a month before we came home, we sat down and built. We each built a pilot system, and it's my system is 3 20-gallon vessels, and with a natural gas system, and I was able to monitor temperatures within plus or minus 1 degree. And once I started doing that and having consistency and repeatability on my recipes, I was then able to start tweaking them, getting rid of certain things that I dislike, adding things that I really like, and that upped my game just tremendously. And then the addition of these plastic fermenters behind me here, that was probably one of the greatest things I ever did for my brew system at home, not having to mess with the plastic buckets and the carboys and that kind of stuff, and being able to make 15-gallon batches to where you can age a couple and see how it plays with the beer and the taste, and like I said, I take tons of notes and spreadsheets, Excel, all that kind of stuff. Man, that's my game. I love doing that kind of stuff. Putting formulas in there and messing around with those formulas and getting the right color and the IBUs and all that kind of stuff. Just, I really enjoy some of that stuff, and it's frustrating at the same time. But once you have something that works, and you can repeat that over and over and over again, man, it's such a huge help when you're trying to make something great.
Yeah.
Do y'all have any plans for distribution?
Yeah. Matter of fact, what we're waiting on right now is our tap handles. We have settled on our tap handle design, and probably I think they're due in about another 4 weeks. Once those tap handles are about 2 weeks out, we'll get our ABLE license for self-distribution, and we'll start doing self-distribution here locally. One of the things I want to try and do is brand a couple of our beers to a couple businesses here in Owasso, and something that they can call their own, and sell it only here and in that location. I think that's is neat for a business to be able to offer something that's you're not going to get it anywhere else.
Yeah.
So that's something that we're gonna jump into, and we've got some really good friends in the community. I'd like to hit a couple of the bars that have been really helpful as far as giving out advice and being super friendly on lessons learned when they were starting their businesses. And so we want to start distributing to those guys first, and that's. We probably are at least 2 to 3 years away from having any kind of canning or bottling operation. So everything right now will be going to kegs and out to bars and things like that. And I'd like to start working with some other local breweries and having an exchange program, where we can just go out and have a rotating tap. The brewing community and everywhere, all the brewers are just a super tight community, and everybody is really helpful. I think if one brewery succeeds, they all tend to succeed. And the amount of information that's out there, is kind of overwhelming when you actually sit down. If you need something answered, there's someone around that's got who's got the correct information for you.
So one thing I was going to ask, just from our previous conversations, when I talked to you for Craft Magazine several months ago, I know you've got your favorite style of beer, and then you've got a least favorite style of beer, and I thought your rationale behind that was interesting, if we could kind of talk about that.
Sure. Yeah, so I love Belgian style beers. That's just, I think, Egypt might have created the beer, but I think the Belgians perfected it. They do some incredible things. They do things that as home brewers would, shock and disgust us. And it's they do some interesting stuff over there, but they've been doing it for hundreds of years, and they're just really good at it. So I appreciate that, and I appreciate how the recipes have been passed down, and that kind of stuff. It's it just a fascinating culture over there, and just great beer all around. So with that being said, as far as least favorite goes, I despise sour beers, and it's not that there's anything wrong with them. When you make home brew, you will screw up and contaminate a batch of beer. It's inevitable. It will happen. You'll have that one tube that you just like, I can get a couple more batches out of it, and it'll have a bacteria in it, and it will sour a beer. And once you've soured a beer, you can taste it about a day into the fermenter. It's ruined. And for you to go, well, maybe it's this hops or whatever, some kind of off flavor, and then it goes into the keg, and now you've got 2.5 weeks of this invested time, and now you're carbonating it, and you're just hoping that this is gonna, and then after a month long of waiting on this keg of beer that you've been probably 2 months in the planning process, a month in the planning process, a month in the brewing and carbonating process, and you taste it and it's soured, it's just gut-wrenching to know that you're going to have to dump it out. And somewhere somebody was at a brewery and made 220 gallons of Blonde Moment and soured it, and you're like, I do not want to dump 220 gallons of Blonde Moment down the drains. Let's throw some watermelon at it, and see if we can hide it.
Yeah.
And it tastes like soured watermelon, and no matter what kind of fruit people throw at it, I just taste failure every time. And there's some really good sours out there. Some ghosts. Jennifer was drinking one at High Gravity the other day that was, I want to say an apple or something like that, but she said it was really good, and I just could not bring myself to try it, but it's a popular style right now, but I think it's just kind of one of those fads that I'm hoping goes away. just not a fan.
So do not look for the Emersumnice sour.
Yeah, no, won't happen.
Another question we like to ask everybody that comes on is if they've had what they consider a holy shit moment since they've opened their brewery.
Let's see. That's a good question. I would have to say, when I was sitting down making this business plan, and I was like, okay, for me to make payroll, rent, bills, I kind of like, this is how many times a month or a week I'm going to have to brew, and then figure in food and all that kind of stuff. So I kind of had that number in mind. Once we started going and then got shut down, I started sending my boys up to Lawrence and picking up growlers, and we were throwing stickers on there, and started selling curbside and that kind of stuff. We went through our first batch of growlers in no time. Send the boys up there and grab another truckload of growlers, and went through that in no time. Of course, the guys at Grandstand, they're pushing product as quickly as possible out to all the breweries that are trying to do the same thing. Instead of waiting on shipping, I'm sending them up there and just getting blanks, and we're putting stickers, that kind of stuff. So everything kind of started, kind of slowing down a little bit. We ordered some with our printed logo on there, and once we ordered like 144 of them. Once we go through these, and like I said, we started selling them in March 19th. Once we sell what's left, we've got maybe 40 or 50 growlers left of that 140. Once we sell those, we will have sold close to 600 growlers since March 19th. And I didn't think I'd sell 300 growlers in the first year we were open. And that was kind of my holy shit moment. One, if people like it, and two is like, oh, I can't believe I'm selling that much beer, and that's definitely been my wow factor. Trying to start putting those numbers of what we're selling, and that's I was pretty happy with that.
It's awesome.
That is, yeah. Well, that's a good segue into, so obviously you guys are now open to the public. People can come in, dine in, carry out, whatever. Some people are still not totally comfortable going out. Do you guys still do curbside, online ordering, that kind of thing?
Yeah, absolutely. The only thing that we've changed is we're not making any more deliveries. We there for a while, we were filling growlers and food orders and making deliveries. We had a really good special that people were like, whoa, what happened to this special? I'm like, well, you don't have to do that no more. But we're still doing curbside. We've got online ordering. One of the other things I wanted, part of my business plan was writing this place, was I wanted professionals, working class people, to be able to come home, jump online on their, before they leave, order a pizza and a growler, swing by here, pick it up, and head home, and not have to worry about cooking dinner or something like that, and get a good quality meal that's hot and ready for them to pick up, head down a couple blocks to the house, and have dinner, and and go about their evening. So we're still doing that. We do a lot of that still. Most people now that are showing up to do like a curbside, they end up coming in, and because a lot of people are not sure if we're open, and of course they pull up and see what all's going on in here, and they'll come in almost immediately. But there's still quite a few people out there that are still need to be precautious because of everything that's going on, and I totally understand that. So we'll continue to do that for the unforeseeable future.
Yeah.
Awesome. Everything else?
No. Do you have any upcoming events or anything like that you want to throw out there?
So actually, tonight is our second bike night. So we do we're doing a motorcycle bike night here every Wednesday night throughout the season. What's the season? I don't know, maybe till October, who knows, whatever the weather holds out to. But we're going to do live music outside. Once again, I try to do stuff for everybody. If you don't have a motorcycle, no big deal. Come up, because we're going to have music outside. If you want to have your kids come out and see some motorcycles or just listen to the music, this is a perfect time to come out and do that, because our live music most of the time is upstairs where it's 21 and older. So kids can't go up there and enjoy watching a live performance. Well, Wednesday nights is a perfect night for those family members to bring their kids out and maybe get something to eat and enjoy watching some live music. I'm hoping that this kind of grows into maybe once a month, a bike night, cruise night kind of thing, to where we can have some hot rods out here, some show cars and some motorcycles and that kind of thing. So that's our kind of one of our Wednesday night goals, is to really kind of turn this into a block party out here. Owasso has a gathering on Main where they shut down Main Street for about 4 blocks. They do that on the first Thursday of every month, and from what I understand, the first one of the year will be that first Thursday in July, and it's going to be a huge event out here. But other than that, like I said, every Friday and Saturday night we've got live music going on upstairs, and our event manager, she's always trying to program stuff into what we're going to start doing out here, like most other breweries and other restaurants. They're just trying to find those slow nights during the week that we can add bingo or something along those lines too, and just kind of make it a family destination. That's really what the goal is, trying to keep people out of Tulsa.
Yeah, there you go. Well, I think that's all the questions that we had. Is there any final things you want to throw out there? Any last words?
I'd mentioned pretty much everybody that had been a huge part of this, the whole brewery. One person I didn't mention was my co-owner, Jennifer, my wife, and I'd like to say just without her constant reassurance and support, none of this would have happened. She's always has been there right behind me, whatever it was I was doing. And I think once she found out that I was finally considering getting out of the military and putting those deployments behind me, she was 100% on board. And she owns 40% of the brewery, and which leaves me in the controlling interest, but everybody knows who the real boss is around here. But like I said, I couldn't have done this without her, and I really appreciate the amount of support and time that she's put into this place. And we've had a couple other employees that have, like I mentioned, our event manager Cassie has been, I think, 15 years in the bar industry, and she's another one of those. Without her, I would have been spending a lot more money on linens. She knows people to talk to and what's a good price and what's not a good price. I think with any business, you're going to have someone that's at the top of that responsibility chain, and to be a good employer, be a good boss, a CEO, whatever you are, you have to surround yourself with good people that know their job. Not every boss, not every business owner can know all and do everything. And so it's finding that right mix of people that have the experience in the background to be a key part of the system. And without those individuals, the business owner is going to run himself into the ground and burn out in a few short months. So, like I said, I really want to let those people know behind the scenes here and how much I appreciate it. And finally, my military buddy Frank Montgomery, he's hopefully getting ready to retire, and he's made, I think, of the 15 batches that we've made here, he's been a part of 13 of them, and he's not on the payroll. He comes in, and as long as I feed him and give him beer, he's here almost every weekend making beer, and he's it's hard to come across true friends like that. Usually you always find out who your good friends are when it's time to move. And the ones that show up to help you move the couch and that kind of stuff, those are your lifelong buddies that will be there forever. And Frank is definitely one of those. And all my military buddies out there that have showed up to help paint, and this place is just as much theirs as it is mine, and I appreciate everything that everybody's done. This whole building process, I really mean that. So
awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, absolutely.
That guy said, "Don't let the door hit in the vagina on the way out." That was hilarious.
Good idea.
That's going to do it for another episode of Pub Talk. Thanks again to Donnie from Emersumnice Brewery for having us out today. Make sure to follow them on social media, Facebook and Instagram. Make sure to swing by next time you're in the Owasso area, or even go out of your way to get in the Owasso area and check out their great beers and food menu. And make sure to follow us on all of the social media at Pub Talk Podcast. Until next time, never forget there's nothing in life too big or hard you can't handle it over a few beers with your good friends. Until next time, just chill. Till the next episode.